This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, the Navy's One Atlantic concept with Admiral Daryl Caudle, a new CX leader coming to OMB, and GSA about to become the center of the acquisition universe. Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. The Navy's guided missile destroyer, the USS Gravely, is underway now in a mission for U.S. Northern Command. The Navy says the deployment's part of its One Atlantic concept. Admiral Daryl Caudle is commander of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. At Sea Airspace 2025, he tells me the One Atlantic concept has been in place for several years and it's starting to mature.
It started from the concept that, especially in the Atlantic, and it is applicable more globally, but because of the size of the Atlantic, that we could gain opportunity by sharing forces more seamlessly between the European Theater Commander and the Northern Command Commander and the Unified Command Plan line that splits the Atlantic in half. Our traditional model would have us get forces that are globally managed to one side or the other, and once they deploy, they are not fungible and seamlessly transferred across. Unfortunately, the adversary doesn't adhere to those lines in the water. So the ability to maneuver those forces across those seams within our own Unified Command Plan line was a natural fit. So that was good, and it's worked really well. Admiral Munch at NAVUR and me for NORTHCOM have been doing this now very successfully, and we do this up and through our combatant commanders. But the other piece that actually does is that it really makes the utility of our forces higher. So instead of me having to basically give Admiral Munch more force, which diminishes my ability to generate that force using that, I can hold on to that because he knows if he needs that, I can flow that to him more seamlessly. Now, the best part, because no good deed goes unpunished, if you will, is we've expanded that to SOUTHCOM as well. So now the Southern Command commanders got involved with this, and we recently demonstrated that during a Russian submarine excursion, several events pulled into Cuba, where we flowed forces all the way from Europe to NORTHCOM to SOUTHCOM, all of the same package of forces, just sharing that all the way. And in fact, today we're doing Southern Border Protection operations using a One Atlantic, albeit South Atlantic operation. And we look to extend this to the Pacific as well.
You said this has worked really well. What are the indicators? What are the markers that give you that confidence?
I think it's the utility of these forces that we've been able to accomplish the mission with what I would say is about a third less force than the general global force management system would require because of that sharing. So with 30% less force, I'm able to conduct the same mission effectiveness.
Is that informing at all the way that you're operating in the Red Sea? Does that give you flexibility to move forces there in the same way that you're talking about 100%, the other?
100%. I completely agree with that. We don't really call it kind of the one Eastern Med maybe concept, but it is doing that. The 5th Fleet Commander and 6th Fleet Commander are doing the exact same thing in the Red Sea. And the seam there is the Suez Canal. So when ships need to be repaired, they can flow into the Mediterranean, do that. They can flow back into the Red Sea. We can rearm in the Red Sea. So all that sharing is being done very effectively with the Navy. And I think we set the bar very high in the Navy for doing that. I don't think we would be as effective in the Red Sea without that level of sharing.
What did you have to do operationally between when you conceived this strategy and when you executed on it to prepare sailors and civilians to be able to execute?
Well, I think we had to get the structure ready for it. It's not the normal way, as I mentioned. So we had to get the joint staff ready to have this conversation. They want to actually have units assigned to a particular commander. They hold them for the deployment, and we don't do this. So in their GIFMIG, which is our Global Force Management Instruction and Guidance process, we got language in there that allows us to share these forces for 45 days without any Secretary of Defense orders book changes. So and we're trying to get 60 days, a change that would do that. The authority for the combatant commander to delegate that sharing down to the component commander was also a change. So were those structural changes, and then the Navy, we just take it and we start going and operating it.
It sounds like there may be lessons to learn for your friends and colleagues across the other services, across the Joint Force too, sir.
100%, I agree with that, yes.
The preparation for the Red Sea, I imagine, also involved equipment sailors, and so on, separate from that strategic preparation. What did that look like, sir?
Well, I think for operations in the Red Sea, we have always certified our carrier strike groups to operate at 6th Fleet, 5th Fleet, and 7th Fleet. Our Comp 2X, which is currently underway right now with the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, prepares those sailors, 8,000 folks, with aircraft carrier and destroyers, an air wing, to be ready to operate in those three areas of responsibility. I think what's really changed is the getting the feedback from Eisenhower Strike Group and building the lessons learned from real-world combat operations into that training syllabus. And then the rate at which we are learning right now with the Truman Strike Group and what they're doing there is constantly being built into how we're preparing those sailors, those warriors, to fight most effectively in the Red Sea.
What are the kind of lessons that you're pulling from those, sir?
It's things, how to employ the radars most effectively, how to triage that very complex environment, what rules of engagement enhancements are needed, how to sift through the myriad of contacts that are there for the proper shot doctrine so we don't waste weapons and utilize the best weapon for the best target. So that turn loop on those lessons learned has been very fast, very effective. It's got the right people involved in that conversation, and we're getting that back real time now. What used to take up to a year to process, went to about a month with Eisenhower, is now down to 1 day, really, with Truman.
What's giving you that acceleration?
It's the way we have trained the ship to get those data packages back to these communities of practice in real time, over the air, so that we learn how to do doctrinal changes and assess those back here on the homeland in near real time.
Have you had to do anything back here with those COPs to equip them to be able to do that?
We have completely changed in many instances for one-way UAVs, what type of shots that we're taking. We're fielding new systems on our ship, so we have better matching of capability, or a smaller weapon system can be used based on the threat. So I'm not having to shoot SM2, SM6 for something where the cost curve is upside down. And we're training these commanding officers and their crews to utilize the full suite of that. And all those lessons are coming back from SMITIC out in San Diego, Surflant, NAVWAR, and Dahlgren are all working together to go change those doctrinal processes.
Last time you were here, we talked about data and how you were using data in any number of different ways. And it sounds like in the last year, that use of data has only accelerated exponentially.
100%. And it's the way we're able to take it, digest it, put it into our systems back here, see what they actually saw, including the audio from Combat Information Center, and hear what the actual tactical action officer was saying, what the commanding officer was saying. That match to the scenario is letting us get this dialed in.
When you sit down with Ms. Rathbun and the others in IT leadership in the Navy, what are those conversations like? Where do they start with, we would like to be able to do this, how do we go about doing it? Or do they start with her saying, we have a capability now that you may be able to do something with, some combination of both?
I think the normal muscle memory is I've got a thing, CAUDL will go figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get where those things are there so we don't start from scratch, but they're nimble and flexible and adaptable enough that I can give folks like her in that world my requirements, and that can quickly be adapted in that IT space.
Another location I want to ask you about that's been a huge topic of conversation here, and that's the Arctic. Another topic we covered last time we got together.
Yes.
What's your sense of how that location has evolved over time, and what the Navy's role is in working with the Coast Guard, international partners in presence there?
I think, I preach the Arctic heavily. It is the place that most don't care about, and they just don't understand what's up there for minerals, natural gas, rare earth, oil, and the Russians actually trying to, mark claim to that territory and try to control that body of water. And so we cannot, relinquish that space. It's extremely important that we have enhanced presence, really great capabilities, because it is austere up there and cold, high latitudes, communication, navigation systems, and then we have great partnerships. And then the partners that we have are fantastic. Doing a lot with Canada up there, doing a lot with the Coast Guard up there, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I was able to take some DVs up there during the last ice camp. I got some time with Fox News up there, where I was able to get to show them firsthand that environment and what the U.S. Navy can do up there. And so I think the awareness is everyone's catching on to the importance of that. As that polar ice cap continues to melt and that northern sea route opens up, we cannot be left behind as a Navy up there. And it's an extremely important frontier.
You can read more about the Navy's role in the Arctic and more of the topics I covered with Admiral Caudle on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a new CX leader coming to OMB. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation. We drive it. Maximus.
Welcome back. The Office of Management and Budget will bring on a federal government service delivery lead, according to the language in the Government Service Delivery Improvement Act that became law in January. Both the Biden administration and the first Trump administration included improving customer experience into their respective presidents' management agendas. Marianne Monroe is vice president of the CX Accelerator at Maximus. Marianne, welcome. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
What are the most important elements of that act, of that legislation, in your view, to the agencies and not just to OMB?
Yes, the most important pieces of the act for the agencies is really one, that it establishes an OMB service delivery lead that is really looking overarching across the entire government at improving service delivery and public services across government. The second, and then with that, actually establishing the appropriate metrics that are required and the standards that need to be adapted and adopted for federal agencies. Secondly, it also establishes service delivery leads in each of the agencies that will be responsible for really implementing an execution plan and being very transparent about what they're doing and how they're driving efficiency and effectiveness in their government programs.
There are a lot of agencies that already have customer experience leads of various titles across the agencies. Are the strategies that they have in place now in sync with what you expect to see OMB require them to do, or will this require those CX leads to do something different or produce something different than they already are?
I think it's going to be building on what they've started as they've been there already, but actually accelerating how they are going to show how they're innovating new technologies into the fabric of delivering customer service to the public. I think, even with the Government Service Delivery Improvement Act, there have been even more with the executive orders, with accelerating AI use within the government. You're going to see all of this come together, and I think see acceleration in how to leverage technology to improve public services.
You used a term before we went on the air that I've seen other people in government use regarding CX, and that's creating a frictionless experience. What does that look like, both from the person receiving the services and the person and the organization providing the services in government?
Right. From the customer or the citizen receiving the services, they need simple, they need seamless, and even maybe more personalized as we move forward and look at how government can really tailor communications and services to meet the needs that the public has. Definitely secure, so that the public understands and knows that their interactions and their payments or their benefits applications are secure and protected and private. And then the seamless part is really being able to interact with the government on the channel of their choice and ensuring that the messaging, the design, and the communication and the data will transfer across all of those channels to make it easier for them to interact in the way that they would like with the government.
You referenced metrics a moment ago. Are the agencies, in your view, using the right metrics to determine that the customer is receiving the experience that they should be getting, or are there other things that maybe they should be watching? I guess the answer could be both, I suppose.
I think the answer is both. I think agencies are definitely focusing on how they're going to be or already improving efficiencies and effectiveness of the services that they apply and deliver. to the public. I think more work can be done to better define what those efficiencies are, and then leveraging the technologies and the methods in which they then will deliver more efficient services, and things like improving automation to make service delivery more seamless and easier. And also, you had mentioned earlier, Francis, about the employee side of things. I wanted to just get back to that for a moment, because I think that's a very, very important part of this equation in service delivery, that we think about the employees who are on the front lines having to learn the new technologies and upskill so that they understand how to use new AI-enabled technologies to deliver services, and also on the backside using automation to help speed up and make processes more efficient. So I think that's a very important part of this improving service delivery, is that we don't lose sight of the people who are using the technologies to deliver, as well as then the public that's interacting with them as well.
Marianne, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You can read more about CX on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, GSA is about to become the center of the acquisition universe. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in just a moment. If you're looking for real answers about securing the cloud in government, you'll find them on Cloud Security In Depth, presented by Cisco. Available now on demand from FedGov Today. You'll learn how the Army's modernizing cloud infrastructure to stay mission ready, and how Cisco is helping federal agencies secure data across multi-cloud environments. 30 minutes of insight from top government and industry leaders, streaming now on demand at fedgovtoday.com/in-depth. Welcome back. The General Services Administration will become the home of just about all acquisition activity in the federal government under an executive order from the White House. The EO says GSA will be responsible for buying, quote, common goods and services for the rest of the government. Crystal Philcox is former Assistant Commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service at GSA. Roger Waldron's president of the Coalition for Common Sense in Government Procurement, former acting Deputy Chief Acquisition Officer at GSA. Friends, welcome. It's great to have both of you here. Roger, that phrase, common goods and services, is in the EO 3 or 4 different times. It strikes me that's important. Am I reading it right, or am I missing something?
Oh, it does, Francis. First of all, thanks for having me back on the show. It does set the framework for GSA's responsibilities. And there are the 10 categories and category management, but I like to think of it as think about what's on the GSA schedules program, right? It's common services, products, commodities, MRO, IT, a little bit of everything. If you think about the schedules program and what it provides to customer agencies across the federal government, when I think of common, goods and services, that's what I think of.
What was your reaction when you read this EO, Crystal, about what it might mean for Federal Acquisition Service inside GSA, your former organization, more broadly for the agency, bandwidth-wise and so on, and also for the agencies that are already GSA customers, and for those that may be trying to do things on their own and aren't supposed to anymore?
Yeah, those 10 common categories, were really, GSA managed pretty much 7 of those already. And so as an agency, right, if I'm looking at how I'm going to start to move my acquisition into GSA, I'm looking at, okay, what are those things that are purchases that I make that are part of those categories versus maybe some things that might be unique that I'm purchasing in my agency that wouldn't be necessarily common goods and services. And so in about a month, they're supposed to get back to GSA having identified that.
Mm-hmm. What do you advise people within the agencies to look at when they're doing that? Is it really just as simple as, can we buy this from, do we need to do this ourselves, or can we let GSA do this, or is there more to it than that, do you think, Crystal?
I think there's a little more to it than that. You're actually going to have to transfer contracts over and find folks to manage those contracts over in GSA. And so as an agency, I'm looking at are there things that aren't really part of those common categories? And most of those are in DoD, and would be weapon systems and that sort of thing. But there may be some unique things in agencies that they want to keep inside.
What's your sense of what this means for the vendors, Roger?
Well, obviously vendors have to pay close attention to all the changes, how things evolve over time. I think there's opportunity. This could be very transformative of procurement in general. And I like to think about President Trump's executive order on the consolidation to GSA and pair that with the president's executive order on the FAR rewrite. So the streamlining, the opportunity to streamline and focus on contract vehicles that are government-wide at GSA can reduce barriers to entry for government contractors. It will deliver greater efficiencies in terms of compliance requirements and also just access to the market over time. So there's a great opportunity here. Contractors really have to pay attention to GSA. And not that they weren't before,
right,
but even now. And GSA, that executive order on the FAR rewrite, charges agencies actually to also look at their supplemental regulations. And there's supplemental regulations that govern the multiple award schedules program that GSA has the opportunity to streamline, reform, and commercial item contracting in general, reducing clauses, applicability. We've talked about that before, Francis, on the show.
Many times.
There's the power and simplicity and reducing the regulatory burden and concentrating that through GSA could be transformative.
Crystal, what do you expect the Federal Acquisition Service to have to do to ramp up to accommodate all of this volume that they're about to take on?
Yeah, they are going to have a lot of volume coming in, right? And so if I'm GSA, I'm thinking, where do I do this? How do I do this? They have an assisted acquisition service, but those folks are really kind of those acquisition ninjas, right? That are doing the most the most complicated buys, the highest dollar buys, and so there wasn't really a place inside GSA to handle this. So they are likely thinking, okay, how do I create a space either in an existing organization or new that will help me bring all of this new work in? And we know that there are about 4 agencies that they're starting with, and GSA is great at test and learn, right? They do pilots all the time. So they'll start to take a look at the work that's coming in. They'll figure out their processes, their procedures. They'll develop templates. They'll get that down really solid before they start to get a bunch of other agencies coming in, and hopefully they'll have the staff to just grow from there.
I'll ask you first, but I'm curious for your input on this too, Roger. Are there opportunities for automation or for tools that, like the marketplaces that GSA has already tested, to expand some of those to make buying a lot easier for these agencies without them having to replicate, move, and so on?
There certainly is, right? There's plenty of opportunity for new technology to come in, and to expand some of the marketplaces that they currently have. So I think we'll see that, and as a vendor, you probably should be watching very carefully where things are going to start to land, right? And how things are going to work out. The new technology, along with the FAR regulations and the focus on commercial buying, all of that is going to be complicated for a little while, but it should, as that smooths out, really be able to expand the ease and reduce burden for
There's
folks.
a nugget there I want to come back to, but Roger, your thoughts on automation and some of the tools like the marketplace that already exist?
Well, the government is already using artificial intelligence in the evaluation of proposals, even in writing RFPs in some cases. And on the flip side, contractors are using artificial intelligence to support their proposal development and that sort of thing. So that's already going on. Here, with GSA and the consolidation there's an opportunity as it reorientates itself to take all this on, to identify opportunities to make investments in systems to create greater efficiencies. And along with that, like one of the things that I think would be very helpful is consolidating, for example, the schedules program, $50 billion annually just through GSA. It's been separated in 3 different divisions within the Federal Acquisition Service. That program, and that's something, our member companies have always said, hey, it should be one program and managed through one office, to increase accountability, efficiency, and to identify those investments in systems that need to be made to make the program run more efficiently. There's a great opportunity there as well.
The nugget I wanted to come back to, Crystal, we've talked about a lot of individual pieces in this conversation so far. The FAR rewrite Roger just mentioned schedules consolidation and so on. Is it a good idea, do you think, to take this on all at once, or is it maybe necessary to do it all at once and so that it all sorts out in the way that the administration is saying they want it to sort out?
I think it's certainly going to introduce some risk to do that. It's not the most ideal way to do change management, but it is the opportunity to do it right now. And so, I think that GSA will be looking at all of these changes coming in, and they'll be looking at procedures and templates, and also really just not just the consolidation of the work, but potentially the consolidation of contracts, right? The EO leans into that a little bit, and so they'll be thinking through all of those things at the same time, and coming up with a landing spot and working toward that.
Roger, thoughts? We have about 30 seconds left.
So real quickly, this is the time. The focus on acquisition reform from the president's executive orders, there's about 4 of them covering defense, OTAs, commercial solutions, GSA, the FAR rewrite, and also the appetite on the Hill, the Forged Act, the opportunity now. People recognize that we have to change how our procurement system operates. We have near-peer adversaries who don't have to worry about the federal acquisition regulation, for example. We have to be more nimble, more responsive, and be able to tap into the market to get the technologies we need.
Roger, it's great to have you on the program. Crystal, thanks also for joining me. I appreciate it. You can read more about the acquisition EO on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in just a moment. Create AI with integrity, not bias. Security that helps protect your data anywhere. Automated systems that make work less work. Cloud management that requires less management. And new ways for government to do business. Join IBM at their Washington, D.C. Innovation Studio, Cyber Range, and O-Labs. Explore how AI, hybrid cloud, and quantum computing can help transform your mission. Take ideas from inspiration to action. Get started at ibm.com/industries/federal. Welcome back in today's event spotlight. Tomorrow is the day for a deep focus on data enablement, driving outcomes through data. Leaders from government and industry will meet at the Helix in downtown D.C. for a live event and a recording of a FedGov Today TV special sponsored by Booz Allen. If you want to be there for the TV recording and to learn more about how agencies can use and secure data better, just go to fedgovtoday.com/events. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. The new Chief Financial Officer at HUD knows his way around the building. Irv Dennis is back in that job, and he's here next Sunday. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.